when my mother-in-law placed her hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Maybe it's nature's way." I felt something inside me snap. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed, the kind of voice people use when they've already practiced their sympathy in the mirror. I was still bleeding that night, still trembling from the shock of losing the tiny life I had waited years for. And yet, she sat there at the edge of my hospital bed, stroking my arm, her perfume thick and floral, almost nauseating. I remember staring at the ceiling, the hum of fluorescent lights above me, trying to make sense of her words. Nature's way. What way was that? Was it nature's way to rip the heartbeat from my womb? Or to let her son off the hook for the way he hadn't even shown up until morning? In that moment I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let her words echo, quietly, until they became something else. A seed of suspicion. A feeling that something was terribly wrong beneath her perfect, powdered smile. Normal life/setup. Before that day, I thought I had everything. My name is Mira, and I was 29 when I married Daniel, the kind of man who could charm an entire room with one grin. He was steady, soft-spoken, a financial advisor with kind eyes and hands that always smelled faintly of cedarwood. We met at a friend's engagement party. I remember he offered me a drink, then noticed I didn't take alcohol and instantly switched to water, joking that it meant we were both low maintenance. He made me laugh, something I hadn't done much of after losing my father that year. When we got married 2 years later, his mother, Celia, insisted on planning every detail. "Don't worry, darling," she'd say, running her manicured fingers over the seating chart. "You'll thank me later. I've done this before." I told myself it was her way of helping. She'd raised Daniel alone after his father left, and I admired her resilience. She seemed to love me, maybe even more than her own son at times. She'd call me sweet girl, drop off meals, and slip envelopes of cash into our mailbox for the baby fund. Even before we started trying, when we moved into a little townhouse 5 minutes from her place, she came over every Sunday. Daniel would grill in the backyard, and she'd hover behind me in the kitchen, giving unsolicited cooking advice like, "A little more salt, men like flavor." Sometimes I laughed. Other times, her words stung, but I brushed them off. I wanted her approval more than I wanted to admit. Daniel and I tried to conceive for almost 2 years. I tracked ovulation, drank herbal teas, prayed at church, and kept hope alive with every late period. When the test finally came back positive, I cried in our bathroom, knees against the tile, hands shaking. Daniel hugged me tight, his laughter muffled against my shoulder. "We're going to be parents," he said, and for once it felt real. Celia reacted as if she'd been crowned queen. She organized a small dinner to celebrate life. She bought tiny baby shoes and a white blanket, embroidered with the words "Grandma's Angel." I thought she was just excited. I didn't realize then how tightly she had wrapped her identity around Daniel, or how far she would go to keep him under her control. The first clue/suspicion. It started small. The kind of things that don't seem suspicious until you look back. During my second trimester, Celia began showing up unannounced. Sometimes she'd bring soup, other times she'd walk straight in with a spare key, and rearrange my living room while humming old jazz tunes. Once, she took it upon herself to move the crib from our bedroom to the guest room, saying, "You'll need your sleep, darling. I can help at night." At the time, I told myself she was just being helpful, but something about the way she said, "I can help," sent a chill down my spine. Daniel brushed off my worries. "Mom's just excited," he'd say, smiling at his phone more than at me. Around the same time, he began working late, or so he said. He'd come home past 10, smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't own. Not the heavy sweetness of mine, something lighter, floral, older. When I asked about it, he'd laugh. "It's probably from the office. You know how clients are, they hug." One night, I saw him texting someone after midnight. He said it was a colleague going through a divorce. I believed him. I wanted to. Then at one of our Sunday dinners, Celia said something strange. She poured Daniel a glass of wine and said, "You deserve some relaxation after everything you've been doing lately." He gave her a knowing look, one I didn't understand. I asked what she meant, but she waved me off. "Oh, just work, sweetheart. He's been under pressure. Don't stress him more, okay?" I laughed awkwardly, pretending it didn't sting. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the image of their exchanged glance. A silent conversation I wasn't a part of. Transition to tension. A few weeks later, during my 7th month, I fainted in the kitchen. When I woke, Celia was there before Daniel even arrived. She claimed she'd just been in the neighborhood. I later found out Daniel had called her before calling an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor said my blood pressure was unstable, that I needed rest. Celia stayed by my side, holding my hand, whispering that she'd take care of everything. But when I drifted in and out of sleep, I overheard her speaking to a nurse. Her tone was too casual, too confident. "She's fragile," she said softly. "Some women just aren't built for pregnancy. It's better if nature decides." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but the medication blurred everything. I remember only the way her shadow fell across the hospital curtain, tall and still, as if she were guarding something. At the time, I convinced myself it was nothing, that she was just worried. But later, when everything fell apart, those words came back to haunt me. That night, I lost the baby. The doctor said it was spontaneous. Daniel cried, or pretended to. I could never be sure. Celia held me, repeating that same phrase over and over. "It's nature's way, sweet girl. Some things just aren't meant to be." But even as I sat in that cold, sterile room, I couldn't shake the feeling that nature had very little to do with it. The aftermath, the weight of loss. Grief has a strange texture. It's not always loud or tearful. Sometimes it's just empty. The kind of silence that follows you into every room. Heavy and invisible. After the miscarriage, I spent weeks in that silence. The nursery that used to echo with my laughter as I folded baby clothes became a room I couldn't even look at. Daniel suggested we move on. His exact words were, "You're young, Mira. We can try again soon. Let's not dwell on this." But every time I saw the half-folded onesies and the crib Celia had moved into the guest room, I felt a dull ache, not just from the loss, but from something deeper. A sense that I had lost control over my own life. Celia came over daily with food I couldn't eat. Casseroles, soups, desserts. She insisted I take her herbal teas, brewed from old family recipes. "You'll heal faster this way," she said, handing me a cup that smelled faintly metallic, almost bitter. I drank it the first few times. Then I stopped, quietly pouring it down the drain when she wasn't looking. I didn't trust her anymore, though I couldn't explain why, not even to myself. Drifting apart. Daniel grew distant. He'd stay out later, claiming business meetings. When he was home, he was distracted, half listening when I spoke, his eyes flicking to his phone every few minutes. One night, I asked him directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" He froze, then laughed. The kind of laugh that's meant to disarm but only deepens suspicion. "Mira, please. After everything we've been through, you think I'd do that?" I wanted to believe him. God knows I did. But something in his tone, the absence of surprise, the practiced calm, told me this wasn't the first time he'd been accused. Later that week, I found a lipstick stain on the inside of his collar. Not red coral. A shade too mature for me, too deliberate. It reminded me of Celia's lipstick. The thought was absurd, shameful even. No, not that. She was his mother. But maybe it was her friend. Celia had a circle of women she often bragged about. Widows, divorcees, independent as she called them. I started watching Daniel more carefully. His absences, his tone, the sudden way he began wearing cologne again. And Celia. She'd started smiling too much. There was something in her eyes whenever I asked about Daniel. Something knowing, almost smug. The hint of a secret. A month after the miscarriage, Celia invited us to dinner at her house. She said she wanted to celebrate healing. I almost didn't go, but Daniel insisted. "It'll be good for us," he said. When we arrived, the table was already set. Candlelight, red wine, roasted lamb, soft music playing from the corner. Celia was radiant that evening, wearing a silk blouse and diamond earrings I'd never seen before. She greeted me with a long hug, pressing my head against her chest. "You look so pale, sweetheart," she whispered. "Are you still hurting?" "Yes," I answered quietly. Her lips curved into a strange smile. "Pain is temporary. Everything happens for a reason." Halfway through dinner, her phone buzzed on the counter. The name on the screen flashed long enough for me to see it. Evelyn B. Evelyn was her best friend. A woman in her 50s who'd been through 2 divorces and, as Celia liked to say, knew how to keep a man interested. I noticed the way Daniel's eyes darted toward the phone when it buzzed again. Later, when Celia went to the kitchen, he excused himself to help her. I listened from the table, their voices low but urgent. Her voice first. "You can't keep avoiding her forever, Daniel." Then his. "I just need more time. She's not ready." I froze. Not ready for what? Before I could move, they stopped talking. When they returned, Celia was smiling again, too wide, too polished. Daniel's face was pale. The breaking point. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every small moment. Every odd glance, every half-finished sentence. At dawn, I checked Daniel's phone while he showered. There were no texts, no photos. He'd deleted everything. But one thing remained. An email draft in his outbox, unsent but saved. It read, "She's starting to suspect. Mom says we need to keep things quiet until Evelyn makes up her mind." My blood ran cold. Evelyn. Celia's best friend. The woman who used to kiss my cheek every Sunday after church. I read it over and over, my vision blurring. Was it possible? Could my husband and Celia's friend? When Daniel came out of the shower, I was still sitting there, holding his phone. He froze when he saw it. "Mira, that's private," he said, reaching for it. I pulled back. "What is this? What does your mother mean by keep things quiet?" He stammered. "It's not what you think." "Oh, then what is it, Daniel?" My voice trembled. "Tell me why your mother and her friend are in on a secret you can't even name." He didn't answer. He just grabbed the phone, turned, and left the room. That was the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt, not anger, but fear. Isolation and manipulation. Celia stopped visiting for a few weeks after that. Then one afternoon she called. Her voice was calm, almost soothing. "Mira, I think you need to rest. Grieving takes a toll. Why don't you visit your mother for a while?" I told her I wasn't leaving. She sighed softly. "You know, sometimes when we hold on too tight, we drive people away." Something about her tone made me shiver. It wasn't advice. It was a warning. That evening, Daniel came home and said he'd be spending the weekend at a work retreat. When I asked for details, he deflected. "Don't start again, Mira. I need peace." He left Friday morning. By Sunday night, Celia posted a picture on her Facebook. It was a blurred photo at a restaurant. Candles, wine glasses, and a familiar hand resting on another. The caption read, "A wonderful evening with those who truly matter." The comments were filled with heart emojis and congratulations. One comment from Evelyn read, "Always family." My stomach twisted. I zoomed in on the photo. Daniel's watch, unmistakable, gleamed under the candlelight. He wasn't at a retreat. He was with them. Descent into clarity. By the time he returned Monday morning, I had already packed my hospital records, my journals, and the herbal tea packet Celia had given me. Something about her insistence on me drinking them gnawed at me. I planned to get them tested. I didn't know for what, but I needed to know something. When he walked in, he looked startled. "Where are you going?" "To the truth," I said. "And you can keep your lies." He didn't stop me. He just sat down silent, like a man who'd already decided what side he was on. I left that morning and drove to my cousin's place 2 towns over. It would be weeks before I learned the full truth. And when it came, it shattered everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. The discovery/betrayal. The truth comes out. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the call. I was sitting in my cousin's kitchen, staring blankly at the rain dripping down the window, when my phone buzzed. It was Ruth, one of Celia's church friends. We weren't close. She was one of those women who always knew everything about everyone. "Sweetheart," she said in a hushed tone. "I thought you should know. Celia posted something strange on Facebook." My heart sank. I opened the app and saw it immediately. A photo of Celia, glowing with pride, holding a newborn baby wrapped in the same grandma's angel blanket she had bought for me months earlier. The caption read, "Welcome to the world, my beautiful granddaughter." God's timing is always perfect. The air left my lungs. My hands went numb. I scrolled through the comments, friends congratulating her, church ladies sending blessings. I searched for Daniel's name, and there it was. He had liked the post. My cousin looked over my shoulder. Mira, whose baby is that? I couldn't answer. My body just shook. I knew the answer before I could admit it aloud. The truth was so grotesque it barely fit inside me. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a replacement. Celia had her grandchild. Just not from me. I called Daniel immediately. He didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. So I called Celia. She picked up on the first ring. Mira, she said softly, you shouldn't upset yourself like this. Whose baby is that, Celia? My voice cracked. There was a pause. Then she sighed, like a teacher explaining a lesson to a stubborn child. It's Evelyn's baby, she said. And yes, Daniel is the father. My world tilted. I clutched the countertop to steady myself. You knew. I whispered. She didn't even hesitate. Of course. I've known for months. Evelyn needed support, and Daniel, well, he needed comfort. Life gives us what we need, not always what we want. Comfort. My voice rose. You mean while I was losing our baby, he was making another one, with your friend? Celia's tone hardened. You were fragile, Mira. It's not your fault. Some women aren't meant for motherhood. Her words sliced through me like glass. I wanted to scream, to curse her, but the air was too thick with disbelief. Nature's way, I murmured. That's what you said at the hospital. Silence. Then a slow, deliberate exhale. Yes. Maybe now you understand. That was it. I hung up before she could say another word. The storm of grief and anger. I think I screamed. I don't remember much. Just the sound of my own voice echoing off the kitchen walls, raw and feral. My cousin rushed in and held me as I sobbed into her shoulder, my tears soaking her sweater. I had lost a child, a husband, and the illusion of family, all orchestrated by the same woman who'd once called me her sweet girl. For 2 days I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo. Celia smiling, the baby swaddled in my blanket, Daniel standing behind her with his hand on Evelyn's shoulder. He looked happy, peaceful even. That was when I realized I wasn't going back. There was nothing left to salvage. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly either. The plan, taking back control. I gathered everything. The hospital reports. The tea packets Celia had given me. The email Daniel had written. And I went to a lawyer. Her name was Amira Patel. A woman in her 40s with a calm voice and sharp eyes. She listened carefully as I told her everything. The strange herbs, the miscarriage, the affair, the Facebook post. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, Mira, you need to get that tea tested immediately. And as for the affair, we'll make sure the world sees what they've done. 2 weeks later, the lab results came back. The tea contained traces of blue cohosh and pennyroyal, natural herbs known to induce miscarriage when taken in excess. I felt sick. It wasn't just nature's way. She had helped it along. Confrontation. The moment of truth. I didn't call Daniel this time. I went straight to Celia's house. She opened the door with her usual perfect smile, wearing pearls and an apron like she was in some 1950s commercial. Mira, you shouldn't be here, she said softly. I stepped past her. I just came to return something. I pulled out the tea packets and placed them on her table. Her smile faltered. You gave me these, I said. After the miscarriage, I had them tested. Do you want to know what they found? Her eyes flickered. Fear, just for a second, before she regained composure. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Celia. I snapped. You wanted that baby gone because you knew Evelyn was pregnant. You wanted your son's life to fit your design. Perfect, controlled, convenient. She crossed her arms. I did what was best for my family. Best for you, I corrected. You couldn't stand that I took your place in Daniel's life. You needed to remind him who really owns him. Her jaw tightened. Watch your tone, young lady. You don't know what love makes a mother do. I stared at her, at the woman who had smiled through my pain, who had brewed tea from poison and called it healing. You're right, I said quietly. I don't know what kind of love kills one child to make room for another. Then I handed her the lab report. Your love just became evidence. She froze. Her hand trembled as she read the letterhead. And then, for the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing to say. The fallout. Truth spreads. By the end of the week, my lawyer had filed for divorce and submitted the report to the police. It turned into a local scandal. Whispers around town, neighbors talking behind hedges, church members turning cold. Evelyn disappeared for a while, taking the baby with her. Daniel tried to reach out once, texting, "I'm sorry. I didn't know what Mom had done." But I didn't reply. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Celia avoided me completely. Her perfect life, her luncheons, her spotless reputation, began to crumble. Rumors spread that she'd interfered with her daughter-in-law's pregnancy. Daniel lost clients. The church distanced itself. Justice, in its quiet, poetic way, was taking form. But even then, even with the truth coming to light, my heart was heavy. Because justice doesn't erase grief. It only gives it shape. The first glimpse of healing. Months later, I found myself standing in front of the ocean. The same place Daniel had proposed years ago. The wind whipped my hair across my face, salty and cold. For the first time in months, I felt still. The pain was still there, yes, but it no longer ruled me. I whispered to the waves, "I forgive you, little one. And I forgive myself." Because in the end, forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. The public consequence. When the truth spreads. It started with a single whisper. One woman from the church telling another, "Did you hear about Celia and her son's wife?" Within days, it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a wildfire. Everywhere Celia went, people looked. At the grocery store, the florist, even her precious church pew. Eyes followed her, polite smiles hiding judgment. She had always been the woman others envied. Poised, respected. The kind who organized charity teas and always got her photo in the town newsletter. But now? Her name was followed by silence. A silence so sharp, it cut deeper than any words could. When she finally crossed paths with me at the supermarket, she looked smaller. Her hair wasn't perfectly set, her pearls were missing. She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. "Mira," she began softly. "You've made your point. You've destroyed everything." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "No, Celia. I didn't destroy anything. You did, when you decided to play God with other people's lives." She pressed her lips together, but her eyes glistened. For the first time I saw regret flicker there, faint but real. She reached out a trembling hand. "I lost my son, you know. He won't even look at me now." I stepped back. "Then maybe you'll understand what it's like to lose a child." And I walked away. Daniel's downfall. A few months later, Daniel showed up at my office. By then, I had gone back to work full-time, focusing on my career again. He stood in the doorway, thinner, unshaven, eyes hollow. "Mira," he said quietly. "I just wanted to see you. To say I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away. I motioned for him to sit. He looked around my new office, framed degrees, files neatly stacked, a small plant on the windowsill. "You've done well," he said. "I'm proud of you." "Don't be," I replied. "You don't get to be proud of me anymore." He lowered his gaze. "I didn't know what Mom was doing. I swear. I thought the miscarriage was just fate." I studied him. This man I'd once loved enough to dream children with. There was shame in his eyes, yes. But there was also a strange kind of weakness. The kind that hides behind others' choices. "You knew she was controlling," I said. "You knew she crossed boundaries. You let her poison me in spirit, if not in body." He blinked, tears forming. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen. Evelyn left me too. I lost everything." I sighed softly. "Then maybe you can start over, like I did. But don't expect me to carry your guilt anymore." He nodded slowly, defeated. When he stood to leave, he said, "I still think about our baby." "So do I whispered. "But thinking about her won't bring her back." When he left, I didn't cry. The pain was still there, buried deep. But it no longer ruled my days. It was like a scar. Healed, but always a reminder of what I'd survived. New roots rebuilding. Healing isn't a single moment. It's a slow gathering of tiny, quiet victories. I started jogging again, not for fitness but for freedom. I painted the bedroom I once shared with Daniel in a pale, hopeful yellow. I joined a small group for women who'd experienced loss, not to relive my pain, but to listen to theirs. Each story reminded me that survival is an act of defiance. That life, no matter how broken, finds its way back to light. One night, after the meeting, an older woman named Jo reached over and squeezed my hand. "You have a gentleness that survived the fire," she said. That line stayed with me for weeks. I began to write letters to my unborn child, journal entries about each step of reclaiming myself. Eventually, those words turned into essays, and those essays into talks. Women began reaching out saying, "Your story gave me courage." I realized something powerful. What Celia tried to silence in me, my voice, my worth, my womanhood, had grown louder than ever. The quiet reckoning, a year later. 1 year after everything unraveled, I received an envelope in the mail. It was from Evelyn. Inside was a simple photo, her daughter, maybe around 1 year old, sitting in a field of daisies. On the back, a short note. "Her name is Grace. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know, I left Daniel. I'm raising her alone, and I pray she grows up nothing like her grandmother." I held that photo for a long time. Grace. The word itself was a bomb. I didn't hate that child. How could I? She hadn't asked to be born from deceit. She was innocent, a life that somehow grew out of betrayal. And in that strange, poetic twist, she became a symbol of something else, renewal. I put the photo in a box with my baby's ultrasound and my journals. Not as a token of pain, but as a reminder that even from broken soil, something tender can grow. Closure with Celia. Months later, I saw Celia again. This time at a memorial service for a mutual friend. She was sitting alone in the back pew, her hair gray now, hands clasped tightly around her purse. When she noticed me, she gave a small nod, not prideful, not pleading, just human. After the service, she approached me. "I wanted to tell you," she said. "I'm sorry. Not for what people said, but for what I did. I thought I was protecting my son, but I destroyed you both." I studied her face. No makeup, no performance, no mask. Just a woman who'd finally seen herself clearly. "I know," I said. And though I couldn't forget, I did forgive. Because forgiveness isn't surrender, it's release. And I was tired of carrying her darkness any longer. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "You've become stronger than I ever was." I smiled softly. That's what happens when you survive your own family. The moral arc. Finding peace. Now, years later, I tell this story not to reopen old wounds, but to show that healing doesn't come from revenge. It comes from reclaiming your voice, from saying, "I am still here. I built a new life, not perfect, not painless, but mine." And when people ask if I believe in justice, I tell them this. Justice is not always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet sound of your own heartbeat steadying again. It's the morning you wake up and realize you've stopped waiting for an apology. It's peace, fragile but yours. When I look back now, I sometimes wonder how I ever survived that season of my life. The loss, the betrayal, the silence that followed. But I realize it wasn't survival in the traditional sense. It was rebirth. I didn't just lose a child or a husband. I lost the version of myself who always tried to please, who believed love meant enduring pain quietly. That woman, she grieved deeply. She broke quietly in the dark, behind closed doors. But she also rose. She learned that dignity doesn't mean staying calm for others' comfort. It means speaking truth, even when your voice trembles. I used to think strength meant holding everything together. The marriage, the image, the family piece. Now I know strength sometimes looks like letting go. Letting go of the man who betrayed you. Letting go of the mother-in-law who never saw you as a daughter, only as a rival. Letting go of the need to prove your worth. And in that letting go, something new blooms. Peace. It's not loud, and it doesn't come with applause. It comes quietly, like sunlight slipping through curtains you finally opened again. These days, I still pass by the park where I once dreamed of pushing a stroller. Sometimes I sit there, watching other mothers with their babies. And instead of aching, I find myself smiling. Because I understand now, motherhood, womanhood, healing, they're not defined by what was taken from us, but by what we choose to nurture within ourselves after. I may never know why life unfolded the way it did, but I do know this. No betrayal, no heartbreak, and no loss can erase the strength we build from our pain. Some people, like Celia, spend their lives trying to control others, to script outcomes. But life has its own way of restoring balance. Not always how we expect, but always with meaning. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. I just needed freedom. From the lies, from the shame, from the silence. And that's what I found. So if you're listening to this and you've been broken by someone you trusted, a spouse, a parent, a friend, please hear this. Your pain doesn't define you. Your healing does. You will rise again. Not the same, but stronger, wiser, and softer in all the right places. Because even after everything, life still grows. And so will you. Would you have forgiven her? Tell me in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about strength, healing, and the quiet power of women finding their voice again. Because here, every story has a heartbeat.